Hello and welcome back to the Turnstile. My name's Harry and thank you again for joining us on this road to 100 subscribers. Great weekend for Arsenal this weekend. Obviously, we went up to Newcastle, a ground where it ended our season last season. Very, very disappointing result when we went up there. The boys didn't turn up, but this year it felt like revenge was on the cards. We had a frustrating first game against Newcastle this Premier League season over at the Emirates, where I think it was reported that the ball was in play for only 43 minutes in the entire game. And it was great to see Arsenal get their revenge. It's a result that, although it may be too late in terms of competing for the Premier League, what I think it does for this young team in terms of the motivation and the belief that it gives them moving forwards is absolutely huge. Obviously, Newcastle have only lost one home game all season, and that was to Liverpool. So to go up there with no Saliba in there, obviously we've seen Thomas Partey dip in form and Jorginho coming in. To go up there, keep a clean sheet, get the win is a massive, massive result. Obviously, around the game, pre-game, a bit like Gary Neville said, I don't normally agree with anything that Gary Neville says in regards to Arsenal, but I think he got it pretty much spot on when he said about the atmosphere pre-game, that opening nervy 5 minutes where Jacob Murphy rattles the inside post. The crowd get up, it gets lively in there. I did think it was going to be one of these games where, again, the occasion gets the better of us and we seem to crumble. But we turned it round. We were persistent. We dug deep. We fought. I thought that Newcastle they really got emotional in terms of the game itself. Normally, it's something that I would complain in regards to the Arsenal team or Arteta, especially, sort of getting a little bit too animated, getting a little bit emotional, and just letting the other team sort of grab that upper hand. But it really seemed that that's what Newcastle seemed to do in this game. There were some really, really heavy challenges going in. Kieran Trippier seemed to be one that was just complaining constantly. But I guess it takes one to know one. Like I say, we were rolling around a little bit. We were taking our time with getting the game restarted. We were playing Newcastle at their own game, and like I say, it takes one to know one, which is why they were probably so frustrated. In terms of the lineup, I thought Arteta was really brave. Obviously, we know Thomas Partey hasn't been playing very well recently, so to bring in Jorginho as a replacement, it was a risky thing to do in a game that is so physical up at St James's Park. But I thought that Jorginho was absolutely superb. Obviously, got man of the match. The way that he dictated the midfield was absolutely superb. Him alongside Martin Odegaard, they just really seemed to complement each other. He could really dictate the flow of play from there, and it gave Odegaard that freedom to be that magic man, that creator. Obviously, a great finish from him. I've said it before, I do worry about Odegaard in the sense of the pressure's off, he's one of the best in the world in his position. He's been compared to people like Kevin De Bruyne this season. It just seems to be those big crunch games where he seems to go missing a little bit. But I feel like this was one of them. This was a big game, a big atmosphere. We needed a result, and he turned up, so it was great to see. The left back position with Zinchenko, I think, is a slight concern. I said it in my last podcast. It's nothing against Zinchenko at all. I just don't think, in terms of his defensive ability, he's that strong there. On the ball, amazing, and the way that he inverts really allows the rest of the team to sort of come into its own. But I just think that he is starting to become a bit of a weak link for us defensively. In terms of when you compare him and Kieran Tierney, I would say Kieran Tierney is the better defender. Zinchenko would be the better player. So it's a bit of a tough one. Obviously, Kieran Tierney has been linked with a move away from Arsenal. And I think it would be really, really disappointing to see him go. I think he really does add a lot to the team. We've relied on him to be our first choice over the last few seasons, although he has had a terrible injury record. But I think selling him on, we're only gonna make that squad weaker. Next year, we've got the Champions League. We're gonna have other big games. We're gonna want to be competing on all fronts. So I think Kieran Tierney is one that would really be important to keep in the squad. Next week, we've got Brighton at home. Obviously, another very difficult game. We've seen them recently look unbelievable. They look like a team who should be in the Europa League as a minimum. However, we did see Everton go there yesterday and absolutely blow them out of the water. So with Everton's next game being Manchester City, you just worry that maybe Everton have had that good game, maybe one game too early, and Brighton have pulled out that shocking performance, maybe one game too early as well. But on the reverse of it, you could look at it in the sense that Everton have found a little bit of form going into that Manchester City game. They have to go. Manchester City have to go to Goodison Park and really get that result. We know that we need Manchester City to either lose one and draw one, or draw two and we really catch up on the goal difference, which seems incredibly unlikely. So we need them to lose one and draw one. They still have not only Everton, but they have Brighton as well. They also have Chelsea. And although when we saw Chelsea play, we knew that they were terrible and they looked even worse in person, it wouldn't surprise me for them to turn up for one game. They need to turn up for one game this season at least. So it'd be nice to see them if they could get a draw or even go and beat Manchester City. I think in terms of the Brighton game that's coming up, though, I think we're pretty much going to see the same starting lineup. I'd be very surprised to see Thomas Partey coming in to the squad again. I think he will probably stick with Jorginho between now and the end of the season, barring any injuries or anything like that. The same with Kivior as well. I thought Kivior in the Newcastle game was excellent. You saw in the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, there was a couple of times when he was on the ball and he looked a little bit nervous. But I think once he gets those nerves out of his game, obviously he's very new to the Premier League still. Once he shakes that off, he finds his feet a bit, I think he could be a really, really good player. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I mean, when you look back at the games against Liverpool, West Ham, Southampton, you think, what if he had played Jorginho in those games? What if he had brought in Kivior instead of Rob Holding? The Liverpool game, for example, what if he had brought in Kieran Tierney 10 minutes earlier for Zinchenko? We could really be in a very, very different position. But where it is now, you can't have too many complaints. We're a young team, we're learning, and I think we're only going to get better. Obviously, we've got some heavy links to Declan Rice, which would be a massive, massive addition to the team. We've been linked with players like Mason Mount, Caicedo. So I can only see this team going from strength to strength. Now, if we manage to finish on the same amount of points as Manchester City, but we lost the league on goal difference, that would be bitterly disappointing. But it will show, obviously, how far the team has come. To be able to go toe-to-toe with a giant like Manchester City is enormous. Now, they've got Real Madrid the first leg tonight. Hopefully, it's a 1-0 win for Real Madrid. That way, everything's a little bit up in the air for Manchester City there. They've got a week to then wait for the replay. They might do something a little bit different during the week, panic, start resting a few players, and that could see them drop points. So we know that the Premier League title is in the hands of Manchester City at the moment, but there is everything still to play for. All we need to do is focus on our remaining 3 games, which are 3 games that I think that we should win. It puts us on 90 points, which is an incredible, incredible season. The focus is just seeing if Manchester City will drop any points and make us Premier League champions. But until then, keep listening. Obviously, any comments, likes, subscribes that you can give us, it would go a huge, huge way. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon.